In this VersaProbe 3 tutorial video, I will illustrate how to transfer the sample holder from the 60mm vacuum transfer vessel into the VersaProbe 3. The 60mm transfer vessel is shown here. All sample holders for VersaProbe 3 will fit into this transfer vessel, including the 25mm, angle resolved, 60mm, as well as the 4 contact holder, which I have not shown here. To open the transfer vessel, turn the knob at the top counterclockwise. The transfer vessel elevator will begin to drop. On the inside of the vessel, there is a fork and bracket to slide the sample holder onto. Each sample holder has a large opening on one side and then a small indentation on the opposite side. Orient the sample holder so that the large opening faces the back of the elevator. Then slide the sample holder onto the bracket. You can see that the small indentation is pointing outwards, and this is what will interact with the fork on the introduction chamber to keep your holder aligned properly. Each sample holder slides into the transfer vessel the same way. Again, make sure that the small indentation is pointing out. Once you have the sample holder in the transfer vessel, you can close it by turning the knob at the top, then bring it over to the instrument. Remove the plastic cover from the intro chamber. There are 2 threaded holes on either side that will line up with 2 clearance holes on the transfer vessel. Set the transfer vessel on top of the port with the label facing towards the intro rod and rotate it slightly until the clearance holes and threaded holes are aligned. Attach the transfer vessel to the intro using the 2 screws. The view on the left-hand side of the screen is looking through the window into the introduction chamber. Up near the top of this view, you can see the closed transfer vessel. Once the transfer vessel is attached, you can go over to the computer to start pumping down the intro. Create a new sample or load a previously created sample. This step is performed exactly the same way you would put in another sample holder without the transfer vessel. For details on how to create a new sample, please see our video tutorial on loading and unloading a sample. Now that the new sample is created, instead of clicking and dragging the sample from the intro to the stage, go to the Sample Transfer tab and push the Pump V3 button. After pushing this button, the valve will open and begin roughing out the intro chamber. You can see that the intro pressure is dropping, and then once that reaches a certain set point, the valve to the turbo pump will open. Wait until the entire intro pump down process is completed. The current step in the pump down procedure is indicated on the lower left corner of the screen. Once the intro pump down process is complete, there is a special step here. In most cases, the transfer vessel was closed in a glove box, so it has a high gas pressure relative to the introduction chamber. You do not want to flood the intro chamber with gas while the valve to the turbo pump is open, so we want to isolate the introduction chamber before opening the transfer vessel. In order to do that, check and see that the pump intro has been completed, then go to the Vacuum tab and from the Watcher task list, select Transfer Vessel, then push the Process Task button. This will close the valve to the turbo pump so that the intro chamber is isolated. Now you can go back over to the instrument and open the transfer vessel without worrying about flooding the turbo pump with too much gas. To open the transfer vessel, turn the knob at the top counterclockwise. You can see the elevator in the view to the left beginning to drop. Keep turning the knob until you are at the proper height to move the sample holder onto the intro fork. There are numbers along the side of the transfer vessel, and once you have determined what the point of transfer is, you can note that to quickly get close to the proper transfer position. The 60mm sample holder is now coming into view. Once you think that you are at approximately the right height, move the intro arm towards the main chamber and look through the viewport to see how it is interacting with the sample holder. In the view to the left, you can see the brass-colored fork on the intro rod. However, it looks as though the fork is too low relative to the sample holder. The intro fork prongs need to go just above the prongs on the transfer vessel that are holding the sample holder in place. This is an iterative process where you move the transfer vessel up or down a little bit and then check the position of the two forks. This is the proper transfer position. You can see the fork from the intro rod slide up over the prongs on the transfer vessel. Once you have the fork from the intro in the right position, you want to slightly lower the elevator so that the sample holder sits on the prongs of the intro fork. Then, once the sample holder is completely on the intro fork, simply pull the arm back. If you are not completely sure if you are at the proper position, slowly pull the arm back. If you feel any resistance, move the arm back in and adjust the height of the transfer vessel elevator. The sample holder should easily pull away from the transfer vessel if it has been successfully moved to the intro fork. After pulling the intro rod all the way back to the stop, you can also check to see if the sample holder is on the fork by looking at it through the viewing window. Then you need to raise the empty transfer vessel elevator up until it is high enough that it will no longer impede sliding the sample holder into the main chamber. After you have moved the transfer vessel elevator out of the way, you can go back over to the SmartSoft software. Take an intro photo from SmartSoft by pushing the camera button in the Vacuum Transfer tab. Since there is no longer high pressure in your transfer vessel, you can choose to click and drag the sample from the intro to the main chamber. Or you can push the Pump V3 button and wait until the pump down has completed and then push the transfer button. Next, I will demonstrate how to take the sample holder from the intro fork and put it back onto the transfer vessel. You might want to do this if you want to put your sample back into your glove box. Again, this is an iterative process. The position here is not quite right, and so I am slightly moving the elevator in the transfer vessel up or down depending on which direction I need to go. Once you're at the correct height, you should see the intro fork slide easily over the prongs on the transfer vessel. Then raise the elevator of the transfer vessel slightly and pull back the intro rod. The sample holder is now on the transfer vessel. Now I can close the transfer vessel, vent the intro, and remove it from the instrument.